Welcome back to my stories about knives, and today I have an updated story again about PCHUK knives. So first of all, if you didn't know what PCHUK knife is, that's a traditional style kitchen utility knife from Uzbekistan and adjacent countries. So what makes the PCHUK specific to its shape and function is first of all, again, from a design point of view, it's typically a longer knife with the upswept blade, like a Persian style blade, how we call it, and the handle which is mounted towards the top of top portion of a blade, towards the spine, like on a kitchen knives. Not like on utility knives, not like on bushcraft knives where the blade can be even like higher. No, this is more like a kitchen knife, more utility knife, and I have a video on my channel about this PCHUK, about another PCHUK from the same maker. So today is a continuation of that story. So first of all, this is the new PCHUK, and I'll make a review of this specific one. It's not a model, it's like a custom-made knife, so that's the one and only of this type. And yeah, so this will be an updated version of the knife which I have. Second thing, I will apologize for some misinformation which I have given you in the previous video about PCHUK knives. So yeah, so there will be, when I will be talking about the knife, about the story, I will tell you where I was wrong and what can be different from what I said. And the third thing, I'll come back again to the knife itself, to why they are so popular in Russia now and everywhere else. And I'll tell you a little secret which everybody knows. This kind of funny thing. So towards the end of the video. So I will talk a lot. It will be a little bit longer video, I think, with all the stories and all of the attention to the details of this knife. Again, skip towards the end or stay with me for full review. Your choice. One more time, thank you for watching. And actually, the reason I'm doing this is because the previous video about PCHUK knives on my channel is one of the most requested ones. There's like a lot of views on that video. It's also long. It's also has a lot of details and discussions about those knives, comparison between two. If you guys interested, stay with me. I'll talk. I won't go through everything about PCHUK knives in this video. I will talk specifically about this model. We'll do a little bit of comparison, a little bit of a story, and why this knife is made like this and what happened with the other knife. So let's go ahead. So first of all, what you see in the screen is this knife is from Uzbekistan, original PCHUK knife. It has some markings, who made it, Hayrulotis, Kisar, some etching here, and that's how they are made up to today's standard. They are made out of high carbon steel, not very high hardness, so it's kind of relatively softer steel, probably home forged, something like this. There's a hidden full tang in there, and then on top of that there are some ornamentations and so on. Traditional style of bolster here, which kind of attaches to the whole end of the knife, and then there's a tang goes through the bolster, it goes through the handle. Those scales are made over the tang, those pins are made through the tang, and then this metal, I don't know what it is, it's got some kind of like a metal band just wraps around the tang, makes it visually like it's a thick tang because it's a very, very thick stock with the fuller here, but it's not. It's just a metal band which goes around here. So this is traditional PCHUK. And when I bought this PCHUK from maker SLON or elephant in here, and you see on the sheath, that's the same mark here. It was very good one. It was a very good implementation of traditional PCHUK, but made in Russia. And as you can see, it has the same attributes of PCHUK knife. It's a relatively thick stock, fuller Persian style blade. This is what they call like a medium size PCHUK. They can be a little bit shorter, they can be a little bit longer. This bolster handle goes to the top of the blade. Very nice big pommel here. So it is PCHUK by the look of it, but it's not made in Uzbekistan like this one. This one's made in Russia, and it's, as I said, they're very popular right now. There's a lot of offerings on the market. This specific one from SLON maker was a little bit higher price, but I liked it a lot because it had this very distinctive pink style burl, and then it had Damascus with the laminated Damascus, higher density of layers for the blade, and then the wraparound Damascus with a lower density of those blades. Really nice looking knife, with a same type of carrying option. So really big kind of case. I don't even know what to say. It's just a big sheath for the knife. I bought it in I think October 2019, to be true to the story, when I was in Russia. Brought it here to Boston. I used it in the kitchen, and again, that's a kitchen knife. I used it in the kitchen on the wood. I started resharpening it, started working a little bit more with this knife. It was not like an everyday use knife. It was like if you wanna cook fancy, or there are guests and you serve something on a table, I would take this knife and use it. And then, of course, the lockdown happened, no guests anymore. I stayed at home for a long time and cooked a lot. Started sharpening this knife, and I started noticing some chipping of that Damascus on the blade. And that's not good. Not good. What it tells me, first of all, maybe it tells me I did not sharpen it good enough. Maybe I applied too much pressure, but I don't know. I think I sharpened all the knives the same way. Or maybe there was some defects in the metal. I don't know. Or I should sharpen it a little bit differently. So, not good. Not good. And the problem is that I possibly could sharpen it a little bit more and remove all of those chippings. But what happens with the PCHUK, and what specifically with PCHUK, or even pretty much with any knife, but with PCHUK specifically, is that the idea of this knife is that it should have a very thin, almost like a zero, quote unquote, zero edge, zero thickness of the edge. So that knife was not like that because of Damascus. This knife is a very thin edge, really thin for this not so good steel. It gets dull and damaged easily, but then it gets back to shape, back to pretty much tomato slicing or scary sharp. This one's very sharp at the moment, very sharp, but you can resharpen it or hone it or strop it back to very sharpness, to very good sharpness, very easy. That's like a concept of those PCHUK knives, so that the edge is very thin and you can restore it very easily, literally like using your ceramic plate. Don't need to have any good sharpening stones of specific grits and so on. No, just a plate, and it will be back to good sharpness in a matter of seconds, less than a minute. So the blade was not good, and what I did, I contacted the maker through their website. They pretty much the next day they replied to me saying, you know what, ship it back to us, we will replace the knife for you. And long story short, this is the replacement PCHUK which they made for me instead of that one. We talked a little bit more with them over the emails. They offered me similar knife, choice of steels. They offered this one in M390 steel, and as you can see here, and I said, yeah, sure, M390 is a great steel, 62 HRC hardness, great. And of course, it's a mono steel. It will not have those issues as Damascus. So I took it. I did ship the knife back to them. It took them a while to create a new knife. And again, I was very surprised that they so easily offered me a replacement, because it was, I think, maybe even more than a year after I bought this knife. And even not from them, I bought it from a store, but the replacement was done by the maker. So they made it for me finally. It was not very quick, I can say it, but they were, again, transparent, saying that they do those PCHUKs in batches, in small batches. They grind the blade out of specific types of steel in batches, and then in one of the batches there was supposed to be my blade ground, and it didn't work well from first try. Then they had to delay it for the next batch, next month, and then next month, and then finally I received pictures of this knife. It's ready to ship. The last thing I asked them, can you make me this symbol here? And in case you don't know what it is, this star without top beam inside the pentagon, and it says SSSR in Russian, that's USSR in English. Soviet, that's a Soviet Union quality stamp. Of course, Soviet Union is long gone. This knife is made in Russia, so they sometimes make it like as a novelty or as a joke kind of thing. They make this stamp by request. I think it looks good. Made in Russia, but honoring quality traditions of USSR. Again, Uzbekistan was a part of USSR. So yeah, those knives were spread through the USSR back in the days, well known. So this is it. This is the knife which I finally got. And again, this story with grinding the blade, as I said, this is a very, very thin edge with a relatively thick stock and a very, very good hard steel. I can imagine that it's a difficult task. Excuse me, just trying to get the right words here, but it's a very difficult task to grind this blade so well, so thin that it wouldn't curve, that it wouldn't damage, that it will be very, very straight, and the edge would be exactly as you want it. So yes, this is the main challenge of making this knife, is to make this blade the right way. Everything else, my understanding, is relatively easy. Just need good materials, good fitting, finally do the final finishing, final touches, and that's the knife which they make. Again, the SLON knives makes a very good quality knife, as I can see. That's why the reason I bought it, and they have a very good support. You can see I got a replacement knife. Of course, I didn't pay for this. I just had to pay shipping of that knife back to Russia. It was not expensive at all. So this is my first part of the story, how I got this knife. And as you can see, it is beautiful. I like it a lot. I like this orange style burl. I don't even know what kind of tree is that. Probably Karelian birch burl or something else. Let's go through some more details of this knife, more like a review. This one will be short, but in this part I will highlight what I was wrong in the previous review of those two knives. So first of all, what I was wrong is that it's difficult to get knives from Russia. It's not. As you can see, I just told you, get in touch with the maker, ship, and they will ship. No issues with customs. And actually, it's not the only one knife which I got shipped to me from Russia and purchased online. I spoke with other makers, no problem at all, either through the website. Some of their websites do accept credit cards, international credit cards. Some of those websites will not accept international credit cards, only accept like Russian ones, but they usually offer alternative forms of payment like PayPal or something like that. Or I think one of them was redirecting me to some sort of international payment system where credit cards were accepted, so it's not specific to Russia. But anyway, I was wrong saying it's difficult to get knives from Russia. No, it's not. Maybe something changed recently. Maybe it was always like this. But if it's changing, that's good. And it means that you can absolutely get knives from them. And as I see, good quality knives. Price-wise, you can always pick and choose what you want. There's a lot of not expensive knives. This one is, if you buy it directly, pay full price, is a little bit expensive for Russian standards, not so expensive for maybe international standards. So this one, I think right now would cost you around $150 plus shipping. So I don't think it's very expensive for this quality of a knife. For M390 steel, for this beautiful burl, very good quality of execution and so on. That's thing number one, which I was wrong, and happy that I was wrong. So second thing which I was wrong in that review is that I thought that this knife is full tank. As I said, this knife is full tank, but it's hidden behind this metal band. This one, as we see at this, look at the handle, it's not. So it is a partial tank, which is just fitted in there and has some kind of glue. And there's no pins, as we can see, and no rear bolster. The reason I was wrong in the previous video, because on some other knives which I have from Russia, I've seen how they've been made. When they make this pin here for the lanyard, it's not just an insert into the handle. It's something which kind of gets connected to the tang of a knife inside the handle, either screwed on or it has some sort of a hook connected to that, and then everything is glued together. So it is not, so there's no stronger parts which would hold this handle together. It's just the wood and a little bit of a tang inside it. Unfortunately, I was wrong. So for many people, they would say, no, we want a full tang knife. But again, this is a kitchen knife. It's not your bushcraft knife. It's a utility knife to some sort, but it's more towards your light work utility. You don't want to use it as a bushcraft knife. You don't want to chop wood with this one, and mostly you want to use it in the kitchen. For that, it's more than good. Let's talk about the knife itself a little bit more. And as you can see, fit and finish is really, really nice. There's no gaps here. There's no gaps between the handle. Very nice bolster. A little bit lighter than the previous one. The overall blade is lighter and very good steel. So also the difference now is that they made it a little bit wider, or whatever you call it, taller. So your heel of the blade is a little bit, kind of couple millimeters out of the bolster. And what it means that if I have a cutting board, a chopping board, it's relatively high, I can use full length of that blade and do the push cuts or rocking move cuts. I mean, pushing it, but rather than just slide like a pull cut, like comparing to this one, if I do this, the bolster hits the board, and here I will not cut through the vegetables, especially after a lot of use. If it would be sharpened a few times, this will go up, and you will never ever touch the board with this knife. There always will be gap, and that's again one of the reasons I didn't want to resharpen that Damascus, because I would have then kind of blade which would be worn out like this. Didn't want to have it. In this one, that's how they started making those PCHUKs recently. Instead of like blade being flush with the bolster, it's now a little bit out. So yes, you can now use it European style, but as I said, on the edge of the board, because still the blade itself is not tall enough, and the handle for your whole hand to fit comfortably in here. You see how it will look like if you would want to use it straight away. No, you got to use it on the edge of the cutting board, and then you can use then you can do European style food prep with this knife on the board. And I like it a lot better. Second thing which is different, it's a tiny difference, but for me it's very important. Instead of Damascus, which is cool looking but not really good from my experience for the kitchen, not only about that knife but in general, now they have a markings for the steel, for the hardness, and even this mark. I think it's great. So you have your steel type for the knife. Let's say this knife goes into some other hands and they don't no idea what it is. It's difficult to find, not a common brand, it's information mostly in Russian. Yeah, anyone who knows about steels will say, yep, that's a great steel, M390 62 HRC, very good. Now I know what to expect from this blade, so I like it better. Third thing in general, what I like about this knife is brighter colors. That knife was dark and then pinkish here. This one is very bright, and it makes another positive impression on me when I use it. And then the third difference, whatever is number, is that there's no pommel here for lanyard attachment. I asked the makers, like, why don't you do it anymore? And they said, yep, we stopped doing this. We had some issues that when the people would drop it and then it will break. Because again, it was not connected to the tang inside the handle, so they stopped doing this, and we don't have it anymore. So if I would want a lanyard for this knife, I would have to do it myself, to screw in something. I don't want to do it, or drill a hole here. It would look like more like a saber handle. After that, again, I don't want to do it. I don't want to drill this very nice wood. I don't want to ruin it. So very nice finish on this burl. It just like feels amazing in hand. Very nice, as I said. So that's your knife review, high quality knife. Unfortunately, like, we're getting close to the end of the video. There are a few things which I did not like about this knife from a quality point of view. So first thing, I didn't like the way those markings are done. They are done with the laser, and they are a little bit harsh. So for example, you can hear it, right? So what it means that food, it's a kitchen knife, the food will get into those gaps, into those grooves, and may cause some bacteria growth, but hopefully if you wash it well, it's not going to happen on both sides. So I said them, you know what, the markings are not very good. Said, yep, yeah, we're working on this to improve it. It's adjustment for the different steels of power of the laser, which makes those grooves. You got to be more careful, and hopefully, let's say if you order the knife from them and get one in the future, it will not have this issue, hopefully. Again, minor issue, but for me, I pay attention to those details. That's important. Second thing which I didn't like about this knife is the sharpness out of the box. The blade itself is created really well, and I don't know how it is possible to show it through the camera, but it's a very thin edge, thinner than any other kitchen knife which I have, and the edge itself is so thin, but it is made very well, straight, no issues, no waves, no, I don't know, very nice tip here. Edges made very well, but the sharpness itself was not good, so it was just barely sharpened on some kind of stone. But after just a few touches on the honing rod, on ceramic honing rod, it is very sharp now. And that's the whole concept of PCHUK working for you right away. Or on leather, it will work too. Work very well to resharpen it and to not resharpen, to hone it and bring it back to the very sharp state. So that's another thing which I did not like about this knife. And the third thing which I did not like about this knife is the sheath. The one which came with the previous knife was made out of a little bit thinner and a little bit softer leather, and it felt nicer in the hand. This one's exactly the same construction, but a little bit more rough leather, and it's made a little bit with the less quality, maybe, control. Let's put it this way. And because this leather is very rough, it always has those dark things, dark particles. Let's say I use it like this, and there will be all of this. I don't even know how those things are called. You will have them on the knife as you pull it out. And again, that's a kitchen knife. It means that you gotta clean it before you start cooking, because you don't want those things to go into your food. So that's another thing which I didn't like. They said, yep, again, we are working on a better quality control for those sheaths. Of course, there are different people who make the knife, different people in the company who make the sheath. They gotta be more careful about what they're doing. Anyway, I don't store it like this in the kitchen. I store this knife separately in the kitchen, so I don't have this issue. Again, I brought it just for you to see what it is. It's a really nice and big one, but for the kitchen use, it doesn't really work this way. I would prefer even something more simple, like a simple case which would just protect the blade, and no sheath, no carrying options. I don't want to carry this knife around. But unfortunately, that's quite common how knives are sold in Russia with this type of carry system. And I think that's about it. That's about it for the knife review and the whole story. I do like the knife. I used it a few times. I don't use it very often right now. As you can see in my channel, I have so many knives now. Kind of worked through upgrading my whole kitchen knife collection, kitchen knife story here. This is it. Again, I highly recommend this brand, SLON. And as you can see, very good support for the quality of the knives, even internationally, even without any proofs that, oh, it's your warranty period and where you bought it, talk to them. No, it's their knife, they cover it. I was very impressed, and that's why I highly recommend them, even like forget about those minor things in here. But the final thing in this video, final thing which I promised you, the secret which everybody knows. All right, so this is about this type of knife specifically. So if you know, there are specific laws about knives in Russia and in many European countries and many post-Soviet countries. There's a kind of clear definition that there's a knife, there's this type of knife, and there's those type of knives which are designated as a weapon, quote-unquote weapon. So a lot of course, military knives, a lot of big hunting knives, they can fall into the category of a weapon. So there are a few very distinctive features of the knife which make them a weapon, and they are in the law. I don't want to go exactly through the details of those things because laws are changing. I think they changed the law recently this summer a little bit again. But some of those features which will put the knife into the category of a weapon, they can be a length of the blade. If it's very big and long, it may be an attribute of the weapon. If the blade is very, very thick, again, makes it stronger, means it makes it more usable for damaging other people, right? This would be an attribute which will put a knife into the category of a weapon. Double-edged, yes, it's not a utility knife, it's a piercing knife, it's a weapon. Fullers or blood grooves may be considered as an attribute of a knife as a weapon. And some other features, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go through into a lot of details about them, but this knife is long. This knife is thick and strong. This knife has double fullers. Easily, if it would be a little bit different shape, it would put this knife into the category of, instead of being like a kitchen knife, it would put it in the category of a weapon. But yeah, and by the way, the hardness as well. If it's like made of a very soft steel, then it can be sold without license, not as a weapon, but it's got to be certified that it's a softer steel or tempered down steel, whatever. This one's very hard. So there are a few things which are not attributes of the knives as a weapon, and therefore making those knives with those attributes is legal, and sale of those knives is legal. Ownership of those knives is legal. And so, again, let's not talk about ownership, like you can own, hide at home, whatever you want. But this knife, because it has an upswept, and the tip of the blade is above either the center or the top of a blade or spine of the blade, for more than whatever the law says, millimeters, 3 millimeters, 5 millimeters, and so on, it's got to be distinctive, upswept, it is not weapon. If this knife has this feature, it's not weapon, because it means that it's very bad for stabbing attacks. See? So immediately, knife makers, they want to make this good knife, big knife, they use it, and therefore those PCHUK knives, even being long and big and thick and strong and whatever it is, they are not weapon. Of course, I'm not saying you use it as a weapon or use it for stabbing. No, that's not what I'm saying. This is the secret, one of the secrets why PCHUK knives are quite popular within makers and quite popular on the market itself, because they're very strong, very nice, but they are not weapon, and you can make them, you can sell them, you can buy them, you can own them, you can take them to the forest, to your picnic. It is a kitchen knife or utility knife. It is not a weapon, but still it's pretty big and mean knife, as you can see. So that's a secret. One more time, that it's not just popularity of the knife, it's ability of the makers to produce those knives in big quantities and bring them to the market, because of the laws. The laws pretty much pushing knife makers to invent some designs or promote some designs which allow them to sell you a bigger and more expensive knife. This is what is happening on the market right now. So, but as I said, from a performance point of view, comparing to your typical European knife, chef's knife, this is not there. This is not a chef's knife. That's not your do-it-all knife. It is more like utility knife in the kitchen. Yes, you can chop a salad with this one, but if you have an option to use a good knife, chef's knife, European chef's knife, Santoku, you will use that option rather than this one. This one's good for something harder than your typical vegetables. It's good for big pieces of meat because it has this very, very long blade. Here you can slice it. It's way better for slicing cuts. So this is the story of my new PCHUK. I think it's beautiful. I think you liked the story. I think you're I hope you like the story, and let me know if you have more questions about those knives, about how to get in touch with the Russian knife makers. Maybe I will reply. And one more time, thank you for watching. See you soon. I have a lot of material coming up, and I will keep you updated with all of those knife stories. All right, bye.